Feist and Victor King. We're going to talk some props and we're going to talk some totals. And Victor, we're going to look at last night's game a little bit. We both, well, we can cry on our beer here.
Do we have to look at last night's game, Jim? I guess we do. It was the first game of the season, so we may as well talk a little bit about it, right?
Well, I did have the positive side. I had +9 with Dallas. When I saw 9, I took it. So, but that was the good side. Um, Carter being thrown out before the game helped Dak have more time to throw, of course,
Mhm.
because Carter's an incredible player. And the good thing about Philadelphia, they will get back Carter for the probably unless he gets suspended for the next game and the rest of the season. Dallas will not have Mika Parsons back because they traded him away, so they're not going to get that edge rusher, and they're going to be very vulnerable going forward without him. But that is be that as it may.
Now, Jim, this was one of our lead plays in the Totals Tip Sheet newsletter. And if we were on the over last night in the Cowboys game, I got it at 46.5. Of course, it went all the way up to 47.5, even some 48s by the time we got to kickoff. And by the time we did get to kickoff, if you would have asked an over better, what would be the ideal situation for you going into the game? For me, it would have been, well, Philadelphia's best defensive player getting thrown out of the game right after the kickoff. That would have been my ideal scenario. And Jim, we got it. The spitting incident, I don't know who instigated it. There may be discipline on both sides, but it could not have started any better for over the total bettors. Now, I bet over the total in the first half as well. Thank God.
You got that
But
one. That
but
was
this
good.
this was a tough one if you were an over better, a bad beat for the ages, and a bad beat in the very first game of the season in the NFL. That leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It has for me more than 12 hours afterward. It doesn't give me a heck of a lot of excitement going into Sunday and Monday's action because again, this is something that we've been working on, Jim, all summer long. And there it is. There's our lead play in the tip sheet. Cowboys, Eagles over the total. 41 points in the first half, 8 possessions on offense in which points were produced on every possession, and a 3-point second half. I mean, again, it's mind-boggling. Let's say the total was 47.5. I got a couple of interesting tweets from last night. After the 41-point first half and the 3-point second half, NFL games that had 40 or more points in the first half in which the over-under line was less than 50 were 172 and 1 to the
No,
over in the last 20
no.
years.
Oh
They
my,
are now 172
and two.
and 2. So
That
again, you're talking about something that's happened only once in a 20-year period. And I got one more thing for you here. We mentioned the fact that both teams scored points on each of the first 8 offensive drives. The last 8 drives all ended with no points being scored. That's the first time in over 30 years of the NFL in which a game started with 8 consecutive scoring drives on offense and finished with 8 consecutive non-scoring drives on offense. Again, first time in over 30 years. So we're talking, when I'm talking about a bad beat for the ages, it certainly was. Nothing like this has ever happened, particularly in the 25 years that I've been working at Playbook.
that that's historical stuff. I
Yeah,
mean, we set records. Oh, they set records. We didn't set records. They set records.
right.
Well, we can look at it this way. Um, we got the bad beat out of the way. Now, the rest of the weekend, no more bad beats. And maybe we'll have one bad beat a week and we'll get it out of the way early and then move on. We gotta find some positive in this.
Absolutely, we do. We'll try and find it, and with my friend Jim Feist's help, I'm sure we will find that there is going to be some sort of a rainbow attached to such a devastating loss in the first game of the season. We may want to do a quick review of some of the NFL over under results from last year. Are you up from that for that?
Yeah, absolutely. You have the records. Let's do it.
Well, a lot of this stuff we documented in both a playbook yearbook magazine and, of course, in the week one issue of the Playbook Totals tip sheet, which, of course, is now available. But let's run through some of the best over teams of the 2024 season, some of the best under teams. Will that relate to this season in 2025? Who knows? But there were two teams last year that went 13-4 over under in the regular season. That's 13 overs, only 4 unders, a very high over percentage of 77%. They were the Baltimore Ravens. That's not surprising given the fact that Baltimore has got this dynamic offense. Baltimore games averaged 51.7 combined last year. But the surprising part is the Carolina Panthers aspect. Tied for the best over team in the NFL last season at 13-4 over under 51.5 points per game. It wasn't necessarily an uptick on offensive scoring for
Right.
Carolina, but it was. They went from about 17 points per game to about 20. But it was the fact that they had one of the worst defenses in the NFL, allowing just over 32 points per game. But Baltimore and Carolina, those were your two dynamic over teams last year. Right after that, this is not surprising. Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the number 3 over team, 12 overs, 5 unders last year. 52.1 was the average points in Tampa Bay Buccaneers games. Not surprising. Outstanding offense. Baker Mayfield had weapons galore last year. They were involved in a very high scoring division that we'll get to a little bit later in the podcast when we talk about this week's opponent. But Tampa Bay, 12-5 over under, followed right on their heels by the Buffalo Bills, who in their 17 regular season games, Buffalo went 11-5-1 over under. Oh, right around 68, 69% over the total. Buffalo Bills, again, you're talking about a potent 30-point offense from last year and a defense that gave up about 20 points per game as well. Buffalo games, 52.5 were the average points in Buffalo games last year. After the Bills, you got pretty much a log jam of 4 teams who all went 11-6 over under last year. Those 4 teams, Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, and then the 2 surprises, Denver Broncos and New England Patriots. Very surprising on the New England aspect, but they did indeed go 11-6 like those 3 other teams. Of the 4, Cincinnati games obviously were the higher, 53.3 were the combined points in Cincinnati games last year. That was the highest in the NFL. Dallas games, 48.1, Tennessee, 43.3, New England, 41.5. So you've got a good handful there of 8 to 9 teams that all went over the total at 65% or higher last year. And that kind of ties into something I wrote about. What were the actual OU results combined, the entire league last year? I'm glad you asked, because it actually was the highest scoring NFL season last year in the last 4 years. It was the first season of the 4 in which there were more overs than unders. 144 overs in the regular season, only 123 unders. 54% of all games went over the total. Again, it was the only season of the last 4 in which there were more overs than unders. Now, some of the reasons, Jim, I think a lot of it was tied into the revamped kickoff rules. But not only that, across the board, NFL percentages were higher in the red zone. That means teams were scoring more sevens than threes in the red zone last year. Even kicker accuracy was up last year as well. So those were some of the reasons that 2024 season was the highest scoring season of the last 4 years. I think it bodes well for 2025 as well. 45.8 last year was the average score in an NFL game. 43.6 was the 2023 numbers. So last year's numbers, NFL games, were higher scoring by plus 2.2 points per game. That's somewhere where we're going to be right around this year. I can see NFL games finishing somewhere in the area of about 46 to 46 and a half points here in the 2025 season, Jim.
What do you think the odds makers, lines makers, let's call them whatever, will do with that information? I mean, they do have access to data like this. And if I were them, I would say, well, we got to jack up these totals a little bit because of that disparity. Um, you would think some of um, the defenses will get a little better. Some of the offenses might improve as well. I mean, we've got different coaches. We've got a couple quarterbacks different. Some of the new quarterbacks will have a second year, like Caleb, like May, like Nix, etc. A little bit more under their belt as far as being able to move the team. But the defense is also strengthened up. So, have you seen anything in the lines so far for Week 1 where they've jacked up the numbers?
It's a great question, and in fact, Week 1 lines this season are about a point and a half. That's 1.5 points higher than they were last year. So they have indeed adjusted, like you say. Not to mention, last year was a very good year for rookie quarterbacks. There were some dynamic rookie quarterbacks. Your Bo Nixes, Drake May, the kid on New England. So with a little bit of maturation, and you could easily see some of those rookie quarterbacks even eclipse some of their numbers in their second NFL season. But Jim, let me run through. There wasn't a lot of them who had significantly more unders than overs last year, but it's still worthy of mention. Who were some of the better under teams in what was a fairly high scoring season? Obviously, one of our favorite under teams to bet on over the last 10 years, they did it again for us last year, was the New York Giants. They went 6-11 over under. Only 40.5 points per game were scored in New York Giants games. This is what we look for in a good under team, is a team that has difficulties on offense, but still has a good enough defense to keep them competitive in games. That's what you look for in a very, very good under team. The Giants have been that kind of team, at least for a decade now. For a long time, they've easily been one of our favorite under teams to bet on. Houston, very surprising. Houston went from a pretty good over season in 2023, which was C.J. Stroud's rookie year, to a dynamic under season last year. 6-10-1 was the record for the Houston Texans. 43.8 combined points per game in Houston games. You can credit that to the injuries that Houston had on offense. The fact that there was a little bit of a sophomore slump for C.J. Stroud at quarterback, but more than anything, the Houston defense and the impact of the defensive coaches on that team really improved the Houston defense to put them at a 6-10-1 over-under record. And then finally, a 5-way log jam at 7 overs, 10 unders last year, around 63% under the total. Those 5 teams were the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs. That's right, both Super Bowl participants went 7-10 over-under last year. Also, the Cleveland Browns, 7-10, Chicago Bears, 7-10, Atlanta Falcons, 7-10 as well. Last week we talked about some of our teams that we'll be looking on to bet more overs than unders in 2025. And, we talked about the Cincinnati Bengals, the Dallas Cowboys, the Las Vegas Raiders in certain spots with some of those dynamic indoor numbers that Geno Smith has done throughout his career. But let me just, before we finish this segment and maybe head into some of the props and things like that, some of the, there's about 3 or 4 teams this season that I think are going to have significantly more unders than overs, since we talked about the other part last week. Let me just run through them. We just talked about one of them. Houston Texans are going to be another good under team. I can see this being their second year in a row where they have more unders than overs. Again, you got probably the weakest offensive line in the entire NFL. That's Houston. You know they traded Laramie Tunsil away, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
a very, very weak offensive line, Houston Texans, and still even more improvements on defense. Houston could very well be a very, very, very good under team this season. New York Jets. Again, they'll improve on defense. They're not scaring anybody in terms of their offense. That's for sure. So the Jets more unders than overs. In the NFC, Minnesota Vikings. You got McCarthy going to be starting after an injury-plagued first season in the NFL. J.J. McCarthy will be starting for Minnesota. But the fact that their defense is so good and coached so well, as I can definitely see more unders than overs in Minnesota games. And finally, an under-the-radar team, the Seattle Seahawks. You got a defensive-minded head coach in McDonald. You got a team that we talked about it last week. They're going to be running the ball a lot more this season than passing the ball. You know, some people, particularly up there in the Pacific Northwest, think that Seattle has a top 5 defense in the NFL, maybe even a top 3 defense. So look for more Seattle unders than overs this season. And those are 4 teams to keep on your under radar: Houston, New York Jets, Seattle, Minnesota. Before I turn it back to you one more time, as long as I'm on that category of the Jets, you know, I'm taking a look at our Playbook football newsletter that just came out. 21 pages, our first combined college NFL issue of the season. Of course, it's available at playbooksports.com. $12 is the price. You can't beat it. 21 pages of must-have betting information. But I was taking a look at, you know, Mark Lawrence's write-up in the Jets-Pittsburgh game, and while I won't reveal who he has in the game, I love the fact that Mark added a prop note at the very back end of his Jets-Pittsburgh write-up that we talked about in that issue number 1 of the Playbook newsletter, the one that came out back in June. And it is the fact that this is a prop that Mark himself slammed pretty big and kind of talked me into as well. And since we're on the Jets as a topic, his prop was Justin Fields' rushing yardage at quarterback. And behind a strong offensive line, and Fields rushing for 2,089 yards and 34 starts over the past 3 seasons, Mark is slamming his rushing total of over 625.5. That's the prop rushing total for Justin Fields on the season. It basically looks like a walk in the park. I'm in 100% agreement after studying this Justin Fields prop. For his career, he's averaging 61.4 rushing yards per game. Outstanding numbers for a quarterback, granted, but that's run of the mill for him, 61.4. For him to go over his prop, Jim, of 625.5, he's going to have to average only 36.8 rushing yards per game this season. So you're asking him to do half as much as he's done in his career.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great prop. Mark mentioned it again in this week's newsletter. If you can still get some action on Justin Fields over the total for his full season rushing props, I agree with Mark. It is pretty much a walk in the park.
That sure sounds like it. You know, he's got the arm, he's got the legs, but he's never been a prolific passer. And they look like they will be a conservative team. They got a defensive head coach,
right,
that just came in from. He was the defensive coordinator for the Lions.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn, right?
Yeah, and I like Aaron Glenn a lot. Now I don't know if he can perform at that level as a head coach, because a lot of times the coordinators don't make it in the head coach position. It's a different kind of a job where you have to delegate so much more. But it does make a lot of sense. And I really, it makes more than a lot of sense. It's just, even numbers wise, you're basically asking him to only run for half the number of yards that he's averaged his whole career to just get over the number.
Right.
So I'll be looking at that as soon as we get off the air.
Outstanding. I like to hear that. And while we're still on the topic of NFL over-unders, before we maybe slide into some props in that, there is a free play I want to throw out. And, I mean, since we lost our tip sheet play on Dallas, Philadelphia over, again, how, I don't know, but let's throw this one out as our free play of the week. And it is in the NFC South battle this week between the Buccaneers and the Falcons. One of the few indoor games this week going to be played, of course, in the Dome there in Atlanta. And I'm loving me some over action in this game. It's the over or nothing. That is for sure. Let me check out where we are in terms of the line. I played it at 46.5. It's up to 47. It looks like there's even some 47.5s. It sounds like some of the sharps are in agreement with us. If you're going to play it, get it in before it gets to 48. 48 is a key number in the NFL, given all the different scoring combinations in which a game can finish right on top of 48 points. So get it in at 47 or 47.5 if you do care to join us on this one. And again, sharp over-under bettors, man, they're certainly aware of what transpired in this division last year. I touched on it very, very briefly in our podcast last week. In the NFC South division, there are 12 division games each season in each division. The 12 NFC South division games last year went an unbelievable 11-1 to the over. 11 out of the 12 games when the Saints play the Bucks and they play the Falcons or they play the Panthers. Those four teams, when they played each other last year, 11 overs, 1 under. Not only that, the average, there was shootouts galore in this division. Average points 57.2, by far the highest scoring average in division play. The next highest scoring division was the AFC North, as I mentioned last week, at 49.8. But still, 57.2 points per game in any NFC South games. Now, we caught on to this pattern very early last year. We jumped on multiple NFC South overs in our totals tip sheet and with our King service. So, just in case that very, very high scoring tendency carries on to this season, we're going to jump on it again one more time in week 1. I'm very aware that Michael Penix started only 3 of Atlanta's games last season and at the end of the season as well. But with that said, those 3 games averaged 52.7 combined points per game, and Atlanta scored 34, 30, and 44 points in those 3 Michael Penix starts. So I'm licking my chops. I'm in multiple fantasy leagues for Michael Penix this season. The sky could definitely be the limit. If you talk about a high-scoring series, we've got that in regards to this one. When the Bucks play the Falcons in Atlanta, in the Dome, 8 out of the last 9 meetings have gone over the total with a high average of 56.4 points per game. The Bucks put them in an indoor environment, and the over is almost always the play. Tampa, 19-5 over-under in their last 24 Dome games when the over-under line is 50 or less points. So put Tampa indoors. Give me a piece of the over, definitely. I've got a couple of things out of the database that also back up our play here. All same division games played in domes when the spread is less than a touchdown and the over-under line is in that range of 38 to 51 points, 16-4 to the over, 80% in the
This is
last
all.
four
This is all.
seasons.
This is all divisions.
This is all division games played in domes
Wow.
when the spread is less than a touchdown and the OU line is in the range of 38 to 51 points.
Wow.
Finally, the fact that next week the Bucks have a Monday night game on tap. They'll be playing in the Lone Star State down against the Houston Texans, and this is a 14-2 from the database over the last 5 years. We're talking first half of the season, any NFL road team before playing a Monday night road game. That'll be the case for Tampa. They've gone 14-2 to the over. We're still at a very reasonable number of 47 points. This game's got everything you want in terms of an over. Like our Dallas game, I'm going to be betting over in the first half as well, Jim.
Yeah.
But you got to take the over when the Buccaneers play the Falcons. At the very, very least, don't bet the under, lay off. But we've got a lot of ammunition behind this play, and it could very easily get into that range of 56, 57 points that were the norm last year in NFC South games.
It sounds like everything lines up. And one other thing that you didn't mention, there probably won't be a lightning strike inside that dome. There won't be a delay like we had last night, which probably ended up changing the entire tempo of the game.
It did. It certainly did. It was a slow, sluggish third quarter in that game. I know Philadelphia did score a field goal on their first possession of the third quarter.
They did.
But you're right there. When they decided to do what they did, it was just an entirely different game when both teams got back on the field. And I thought I was over it until you mentioned it again.
I'm sorry about bringing it up.
It's
okay. There's a lot of. I mean, first of all, I just heard a note that there's something, and this is a side note. It's not part of our format for today, but McCaffrey for San Francisco is hurt, and I'm not sure what the status is for the Seattle game, but that's huge. That is huge if he's not in the game.
Yeah, you're right. I did get some of that information early this morning as well. They have described the nature of McCaffrey's potential injury. Will it impact his playing time in week one? We don't know. We'll find out a little bit more information as we get closer to kickoff time on Sunday. But I tell you, no NFL injury report would be complete without Christian McCaffrey being on it, apparently. Right? So there you go. He's not going to be full health in game one. And, yeah, that is a concern for the 49ers. You think they're happy they traded for Brian Robinson of the Atlanta
that's
Washington
huge.
Commanders, right?
That is huge.
So at the very, very least, they got a very, very capable number 2 guy, not to mention Garendo is a very good number 3 running back as well for San Francisco. At least they addressed Christian McCaffrey's tendency to have injuries with this steal of Robinson for a 6th-round pick, I believe.
That was a great trade, very intelligent trade. They're also suffering wide receiver problems on the team. So, I mean, you're dealing with all these games are important. I mean, there's not, but when you're talking about division games like the Bucks and Falcons, like this game with the Niners and the Seahawks, these are division games, and primarily division games are more important during the season because if you win your division, you're in the playoffs. And that's the goal for all these teams, is to get in the playoffs. They don't want to be sitting home during the playoffs. So these games take on a little bit more importance. And this one's going to be very important, especially since Seattle is at home, new coach dealing with a new quarterback. This could be I would have to say, a definite underlook.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Where are we in terms? Let me see here. 43 and a half. The game opened at 46, 49ers
Yeah,
Seahawks. So
it is
it's
40. It is 43 and a half everywhere I'm looking right now. Although MGM has 43.
right.
So
Right. That's the only one that currently,
yes,
but you can see which way the line is going. So it appears that a lot of the betting public is in agreement with what is a potentially low scoring game there in Seattle between the 49ers and the Seahawks. NFC South.
I
Another
do.
another under I'm looking at is potentially the Rams and the Houston Texans. Of course, Houston is a team that we just talked about as being an
I would have to.
outstanding defense
I,
and a
I
great under team this season.
I have to agree with that because, especially since we know that we're dealing with an injury to the back of Stafford, and with if Houston's defense can hold up, that game has dropped from 46 and a half to 43. At Bet Rivers has it at 43. Everybody else are 43 or 43 and a half. So that's another under likely play. That is not a division game, but there is a division game going on this evening, and this is a neutral game in Sao Paulo. It's kind of unfair. You take a team's home game and you put it on in a division game, you put it on neutral field. That's kind of unfair, but let that be that as it may.
Right.
This game has gone from 44 and a half to 47 in most places and 47 and a half others. But you got the Chargers are not that big of a scoring team, and they did lose Slater on the offensive line, which has got to slow them down because you're going to make Herbert a target if you don't have an offensive line and left tackle. I mean, it's hard to justify that move going up so high unless you're looking for Kansas City to blow them out.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't bet the over under. I'm not going to bet the over under. I don't do it in every game, but I'm not, and I'm certainly not going to be betting the game over under tonight. I'm a little surprised by the steam coming in on the over. That would, I think, benefit the Chiefs. The
Yeah.
Chargers don't want to get into any sort of a shootout with a division rival. They'd be much more content to get into a slog fest against Kansas City and keep this game low scoring so that they can stay within a score or two. So I am laying off the total in that game, but this was a great segue, Jim, because this takes me right into some of the props that I like this weekend. Before we get into some of the Sunday props, let me talk about a couple props in the Friday night game. If people will be able to, watch the video here before the Friday night game, let me just run through a couple. Number one, you got to play Xavier Worthy to score a touchdown. He is the favorite. He's at plus 130 the last time I looked on my Hard Rock sports betting app. Xavier Worthy, the second-year wide receiver from Texas, who now plays for the Chiefs. Remember, Rashee Rice not playing in this game. Hollywood Brown still getting over his injuries in this game. Nobody in the Chiefs, if you ask me, has higher touchdown upside than Worthy. Last year he had 17 red zone targets. That's one target a game in the red zone, along with 6 red zone, even rushing attempts. Xavier Worthy. They utilize the guy all over the field. He's pretty much a perfect Swiss Army knife, if you will. So we're still getting him at slight underdog odds. That's the play that I've made tonight instead of betting the total, is betting Xavier Worthy to score a touchdown. And then 2 more quick ones in regards to this particular game, Jim, that I want to point out is the fact that, they say that Najee Harris will play tonight. He might even start tonight for the Chargers. Surprising, he had that July 4th eye injury with the fireworks related incident, whatever. And he's been fully cleared. Now, he's only been fully cleared. His rushing yard prop is right around 24.5 tonight. And I'm playing him under. Najee Harris. He's only been fully cleared for contact since Monday after missing all of training camp with the eye injury. This basically gives him only about 4 days to prepare for tonight's game. Of course, you got first round pick Omarion Hampton from North Carolina now in the mix. So Harris likely faces some sort of a split backfield, and I think there's a real possibility he only sees a handful of carries. So consider that in a prop parlay or betting it on your own. But Najee Harris under 24 and a half rushing yards.
It's great information.
On
Yeah.
the other side, I talked about the Rashee Rice absence tonight. He's serving his 6-game suspension for the Chiefs, and the fact that Hollywood Brown is still not 100%. Someone's got to stand out for the Chiefs in terms of wide receiver in addition to Xavier Worthy. And for me, that's Juju Smith-Schuster. And I've bet multiple Juju over props tonight, whether they're going to be his receptions, his yardage. The one that I like is over 2.5 receptions for Juju. Andy Reid loves Juju Smith-Schuster. When he talked about replacing Rice's production during the suspension, he mentioned we've got a lot of faith in Juju. He's looked fantastic. Take a look at Juju's numbers last year when Rice didn't play. He's the guy who picked up the slack more than any other Kansas City wide receiver. So I'm playing Juju over 2.5 receptions, but you could consider a parlay. He opened at 18.5 yards. He's up to 20.5 receiving yards. Again, people are playing him over. You may want to consider a Juju parlay of over 2.5 receptions and over 20.5 yards. But I look for him to step up tonight and have a big game for the Chiefs down there in Brazil.
It's great that how you look at absences of one player and look at where the distribution is going to go when that person isn't in the lineup.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that last week.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, the ball's going somewhere and the guy isn't in the lineup. So it makes sense to look at it that way. And you're obviously, are there other games that, I mean, I personally, I like the Pittsburgh Jet game. I like the defensive coaches. I think that's a great play under the total.
Hey Jim, it's Brutus's under of the week.
Oh, okay. Brutus is our new handicapper.
Right. He's in agreement with you, Jim.
All right.
Baby Brutus is in agreement with you. Steelers, Jets. We played it at 38.5. It's down to 38. You know where the sharp money's going.
That you're right. It absolutely.
Good call.
Actually, I see FanDuel was at 37.5 right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But it is what it is. A lot of people are playing the Miami Indianapolis game over. It's an indoor game. It's not a division game, but it is an indoor game. But you do have a new quarterback for Indianapolis. And of course, Tua has had years when he can really sling it around. He's had years where I don't know if he's led the league in passing, but he was damn close to leading the league in passing a couple of years ago. So he has the ability, if he can stay healthy, and God forbid he ever gets another concussion, because I think he's been told that may be the last one for him.
The only thing that scares me about the over in that game is both teams are very high variance teams. When we talk high variance, it could be a shootout. It could be a low-scoring game. Miami could look fantastic. They could look like crap. Both teams, high variance, difficult to handicap. Not only that, I don't know, even being a South Florida guy, I don't know how truly healthy Tyreek Hill is. I don't know how truly healthy Achane is, the Miami running back. And not only that, we just found out about an hour ago that it looks like Darren Waller will not play this week for Miami.
Okay.
The guy they picked up, recently retired. Now he's back in the NFL. Miami picked him up as a tight end after they traded Jonnu Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Injury yesterday for Darren Waller. It looks like he won't play for the Dolphins. So I don't think the Dolphins are going to have a full stacked deck on offense. So that's kind of taken me off any potential over money that I may have played in that game.
It might actually reverse things a little bit, because
it could.
Yeah, it might start to look to the under. I mean, I'm seeing Bet Rivers at 47.
Okay.
If that continues, I mean, all the 46 and a halves have juice to the over. So we might
Yeah.
be looking at 47 across the board. And Steichen likes to run the ball, and you got a new quarterback there. Boy, I'll tell you, that could easily, but indoor games kind of make me scared of playing unders, but that might be the answer in that one. Not every game is playable, of course.
Right. Or a layoff. Nothing wrong with a layoff there, too.
That's true. Is there anything else that you see that you want to discuss?
There's a couple of Sunday props, if I can. I got like 2 or 3 of them. And then I got one of these that I want to finish with, Jim, is one of these killer 3-player must score a touchdown on Sunday. And this one pays 30-1 long shot odds that I want to finish with if I can. But first off, we talked a little bit about the Rams and the Texans game. And one prop that I am playing is Matthew Stafford under his passing yard prop of 240.5 yards. You touched on it on yourself. The guy didn't play in the preseason. He already has back issues heading into week 1. This is one of my favorite props for Sunday, is for him not to get to 241 or more yards. You know, he only averaged 235 yards per game last season. On top of that, he's got the health issues. He's going against who I think is the best defense in the entire NFL, the Houston Texans. Even last year, they allowed the second fewest passing yards per attempt at only 6.2 yards per throw. So even if he does have a good game, it's not going to be for a lot of yardage. So I think we got some great value. Consider Matthew Stafford under 240.5 passing yards. We talked a little bit about Justin Fields and how we like his over the total in rushing props for the full season. His passing attempts number for week 1 against the Steelers is 27.5 pass attempts, and I'm going low. I'm going under Justin Fields to 27.5 pass attempts. I'm frankly shocked that the number is this high. We talked or we listened all off season to Aaron Glenn, and he's dropped even plenty of hints over the last couple of weeks that the Jets are going to be a run-first offense. He's in fact stated out loud that he's going to be using all 3 of his running backs and his running quarterback when getting into arguments with reporters. So Justin Fields, and again, you can play these individually. You can stack them up in a parlay. Justin Fields under 27.5 pass attempts in game 1 against the Steelers. And finally, since we talked, Jim, about the fact that we like the Atlanta and the Tampa Bay game over the total, then you may want to correlate that. We talked about correlated parlays last week with Baker Mayfield over his passing yard prop. And Baker's passing yard prop is currently 239.5. I think Baker has a great chance to torch this Atlanta secondary this week. We already like the first half over. We already like the full game over. We've got that lack of depth in the Atlanta secondary. It could be one of their biggest weaknesses this season. Don't forget Baker threw for 330 yards against the Falcons last year. 239 is his total. I've got the number here somewhere. He averaged 265 passing yards per game last year. Now you're playing indoors against a bad defense, and the number is only 239.5. That to me sounds like fantastic money.
I wonder why the line's so low. It kind of
240 and a half. It's gone up 1, looks like. Still, he averaged 265 passing yards per game. The game is indoors. No weather to concern ourselves with. What's been a high-scoring series, a high-scoring division, it's got everything going for it. Consider either playing that Baker Mayfield prop over on its own, standalone value, that's for sure, or in a parlay as well.
I like it. There must, I don't know what the reason is for the line to be that low, except maybe, I mean, they do have an offensive line injury. I know that, and a wide receiver injury as well.
Right.
But
Tristan Wirfs is hurt, and they got some,
right.
But they're so deep at the wide receiver position.
They really are.
That next guy up, man, let's go, right?
they got weapons. And
Yeah.
as long as Baker can stand up, he can sling the ball, and he's a warrior. He'll play hard even if he's hurt, which he's not right now. So that's good. No,
Now,
I
you know,
like that play.
Jim, there's plenty of bettors out there that while we frown on it, a lot of bettors want to make a killing in one day. That's the
Yeah.
nature of the business these days. That's what the millennial bettors do. The young people, they want to make their killing in one day and move on. They don't have the patience to grind it out over a full season. Old school handicapping, the stuff I learned from smart guys like Mark Lawrence and Jim Feist. Uh, a lot of people do not relate to that these days. It is what it is.
But
So
the bookmakers love it because these guys go broke really quick.
they certainly do. So with that said, there's always one little must score a TD parlay that I will play on an NFL Sunday. And I try to find something that if I put two or three of these guys together, that I'm looking for some sort of a payout of like 25 to 1, maybe all the way up to 30 to 1 odds. And we've got one. I did a little bit of homework, and I'm going to be playing a 3-player must score a TD parlay. All three of these players must score a TD this week. They're all three underdogs or getting decent underdog Monday. The first guy is the new starting running back for the Washington Commanders. That's Chris Rodriguez Jr. The guy that, they traded Robinson away to San Francisco because obviously Washington is very high. First off, on that 7th-round rookie draft pick, William Krosky Merritt, I believe is his name, the kid from New Mexico, who eventually is going to be a stud for Washington. But they also traded Robinson away because they are content with Chris Rodriguez as their first and second down running back, not to mention their goal line and short yardage running back. So he's currently at plus, I got him at 165. Chris Rodriguez of Washington to score a touchdown. This makes sense from a game script standpoint because Washington is almost a touchdown favorite in the game against the New York Giants as well. So that kind of tells us that Washington gets out to a big lead. They milk the ball. They run the ball a lot in the second half against the Giants, particularly if they have the lead. And once they get into the red zone, into the 5-yard line, they're going to give Chris Rodriguez the ball. I think it's an outstanding shot that he scores a touchdown this week. The next guy I want to throw in there is the Cincinnati-Cleveland game. The Browns and the Bengals, high-scoring game. The line's through the roof. It's up to 48 now. A lot of people are steaming the over in this game, and I don't blame them. If it was a normal game one with Cincinnati, I may lay off, but I did bet the over in the game myself. I did get it at 46.5. With Joe Burrow having preseason experience for the first time in his career this year, I can understand the fact that the line in this game keeps going up and up. What I researched in regards to Joe Flacco, obviously we talked about it last week. Flacco's numbers as a Cleveland starter, their offensive numbers go up significantly, anywhere from 6 to 8 more points per game scored with Joe Flacco than any other quarterback. And not only that, during that season, that 2023 season that he had with Cleveland, in which he led them to the playoffs with a very, very strong second half, his favorite receiver was David Njoku, the Cleveland tight end. These two guys got a fantastic symmetry together. David Njoku is currently plus 190 to score a touchdown. He's got fantastic career numbers against Cincinnati. And the fact that him and Flacco are like this, are like peanut butter and jelly, I think there's an outstanding shot that a Cleveland team who may be forced to play from behind passes the ball a little bit more. Njoku scores a touchdown in addition to Chris Rodriguez. And finally, the third player in this long shot parlay, this is the tough one, but it is a quarterback to score a rushing touchdown. And in this case, it's the Jacksonville quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, to score a touchdown this week as they host Carolina in game one. Jacksonville, down here in the Sunshine State, is hosting Carolina in game one. Trevor Lawrence to score a rushing touchdown. Now, where the hell did we get that from? I subscribe to an outstanding website called 32beatwriters.com, in which you get outstanding stuff from the regular beat writers from each team in the NFL. They throw out tweets, they send you emails, whatever. I've gotten some good tweets this week from some of the Jacksonville reporters who have said that Liam Cohen, the new head coach of Jacksonville, has hinted multiple times this week that Jacksonville is working on a tush-push package,
Really?
like the Eagles do, with Trevor Lawrence as the beneficiary. If you see it happening in week one and Trevor Lawrence scores, we're going to be jumping up and down. He's currently at plus 300 to score a touchdown in week one, a rushing touchdown, folks. So again, tush-push rumors, Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence completes our 3-player parlay. Okay, the 3 players that score a touchdown this week: Trevor Lawrence at plus 300, David Njoku at plus 190, Chris Rodriguez Jr. at plus 165. This parlay pays just over 30-1 odds. A crisp $20 bill. You know, when I pop a $20 bill into a video poker machine and play max credits, I get only 4 hands of poker. That's nothing. This $20 bill nets us $615 if all 3 guys score a touchdown. It's our long shot must score TD parlay this week, Jim. Think about it, research it. Chris Rodriguez of Washington to score, David Njoku of Cleveland to score, Trevor Lawrence of Jacksonville to score, maybe in tush-push fashion.
That's amazing that you dug that out. Great stuff.
30-1. Let's do it.
Hey, when you get that kind of price, I got to put up a little bit more than a $20 bill on it.
Right. I got you.
Great podcast, Victor. I enjoy this. Information is fantastic. I'm sure the people will love it, and I'm sure they're going to follow a lot of their advice because, you've been doing totals and props for decades, and you know what you're doing. But I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Good luck this weekend. You got the bad beat out of the way, so it's all good from going forward.
Jim, thank you for talking me out of my depression. This is why I'm so honored. I'm so tickled to death to be working with legends like Mark Lawrence and yourself. And again, I couldn't say enough about the amount of respect I have for you guys.
Well, thank you very much. And likewise, I followed you for years as well. I didn't meet you till last year. And we've only ever met in person, only on here, on the screen. But good luck this weekend, Victor. Stay healthy. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Jim.